in watercolor, traditionally, you use the white of the paper rather than any white paint or light paint. You keep the lights through the paper showing through, and that has always appealed to me. I love the light, the lights that come through the paintings, and my monotypes, I've continued in that vein, and I tend to leave the white of the paper. And sometimes people think they look like watercolors in that way.
Is this something that is spontaneous for you, or do you sort of have an idea when you start where your white spaces are going to be? Is it, or maybe is it a mixture of the two?
It's really a mixture of the two. I often will do a sketch, sometimes from a photograph, sometimes from other sketches that I've done before I start to paint. And then so I do have an idea of the areas that I want to keep lit. Often I like to have white around a figure to make it look kind of backlit. So I do plan in that way, but as I'm working, as I'm working, things change from the way I planned, and it kind of goes off in its own direction. I let the painting lead me where it wants to go.
A lot of people would think, well, they would make the distinction between an additive process and a subtractive one, which yours is reductive and subtractive, correct? Do you think that's more difficult?
No, it's not really.
It's not?
No, it's not. It's really additive and leaving out what I don't want. Now there are ways, particularly in monotype, where, in fact, Degas, there was a whole show of Degas monotypes at the MFA not too long ago, where he did use subtractive methods, where you put the ink on the paper and then you draw taking out. I've more put ink on around the areas, leaving the areas that I want clean and white, never putting anything onto them. So that's a little bit different than
so that's
subtractive.
Additive.
It's an additive.
And that goes for your watercolors too?
Yes, for the most part. I mean, I have used gouache and opaque watercolor, but for the most part, I tend to like the transparent watercolors with the white of the paper showing through.
And presumably this is because you want highly lit images. If you colored in the entire space, you would be defeating your purpose of watercolor and monotype.
Yeah, I mean, many times I try to push myself to make heavier weight, more colored images, but my tendency is always to be kind of light and airy, and that's how things usually turn out. Just, I don't know whether it's my personality or what, but that seems to be the way I work most comfortably. I want to give an impression of a person in a moment of time, a gesture or whatever, and I find that often I just leave out the features, the facial features, or just suggest at them rather than trying to do anything very detailed. So that adds to the freshness and the spontaneity for me. I like abstract. I like abstract. I can certainly appreciate photorealistic work like Janet Fish or someone like that, but my heroes are Winslow Homer and John Singer Sargent when it comes to watercolors.
Who are both highly figurative painters.
And their watercolor work is very much different from their oil paintings, which people know. Their oil painting, of course, is more popular and more people have seen them, but their watercolors are what I feel are really magnificent and very inspiring.
Or that type of thing.
No, I do like Japanese prints. I think have been inspiring to me sometimes in particular in my printmaking. Although the work that I'm showing at the gallery now are not in that vein. I find that working in watercolor and working in monotype are really different ways of working for me. The watercolor work is much more meditative, and the monotype has gotten to be very spontaneous and very quick, and the real attraction to monotypes is that when you lay down ink and on a piece of plexiglass and run it through the press, the resulting work on paper is never quite what you expect. There's always some unexpected elements of it. Of course, it's reversed, but also the way the ink goes into the paper. Often there'll be little pieces that go off in a different direction that you didn't expect, and there's always a little bit of a surprise and excitement pulling the paper off. So.
You go through the week imagining what you might do the next time you sit down with a watercolor. How long does your inspiration last, I guess? And how much is inspired by dreams and that sort of thing?
I have done work inspired by dreams. I do draw. I usually have a piece of paper in my purse, or a piece of paper by the phone. I'm always doing a little drawing or whatever. But I don't know. I don't usually. I don't plan my things out so much. It's more spontaneous, to tell you the truth. The subject and the inspiration when I feel like doing that day.
Yeah.
I like to do children. I like to do, people doing things, and it's hard to go up to somebody and take pictures of their kids, or take pictures of people sitting on a bench clandestinely, So the phone makes it a lot easier to snap a shot and to then use it, because the way I use it, it's not an image of anyone that they would recognize, but it's like the light on a person sitting on a bench, or a person's hair and the light on an arm or something like that I find inspirational.